Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. This is the weekend edition where we interview notable people from the world of real estate investing. Today is no exception. We have a great guest all the way from Rhode Island. Welcome to the show, Allie Readyhough.
Thank you, Victor. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great to have you here. You're in a beautiful part of the country. Been there. It's absolutely fabulous. And you've got some things that are happening in the market. Rhode Island's a small market, and yet it's one that is maybe a little bit of an anomaly because it's unlike many other places, especially the closer you get to the water. But before we dive into the details, maybe give a little bit of your backstory and how you got to this point in your journey.
Sure. So I graduated from college and I moved to Boston and got in the financial services industry, which I did for about 7 years. And then I'm originally from Rhode Island, and my dad's been in the real estate world for my whole life. So I ended up moving back to Rhode Island about 10 years ago, got back into the real estate industry and formed a team. That's where I am now. Been doing it for about 10 years and I love it.
Fabulous. There have been a lot of attempts, especially in markets that are mature, where there's maybe a lot of infrastructure that really drives a lot of need for money, where communities are looking for new and creative ways to tax, whether it is income, property, you name it, to fill the needs that exist. And Rhode Island has not been spared by that. How's that impacting things?
Yeah, we actually have a new tax that takes effect on July 1st of this year, and they're calling it the Taylor Swift tax, since she does have a summer home here in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. And it's for properties that are assessed over $1 million and that are not somebody's primary home. So in order to be exempt from it, it basically has to be your primary home, or you need to have it rented out at least 183 days per year. So people that are just using it as a second home property, not generating income, are going to be affected by this. So it's something that we're starting to see a lot of talks of recently, running into people, and they're bringing it up. And they're just saying that they thought that the people put this in place and it wasn't going to have a huge effect on the taxpayers and the homeowners that it was affecting. But I think it is having more of an effect than they were initially thinking, because they have a lot of cost already as people that only use their properties a couple months out of the year, but need to pay, by the water, owning a property with maintenance, landscaping, increased value property taxes. And this is just another carrying cost on top of that. And it's really making them reconsider if they're using it enough to see the value in it. And I think we're going to see a lot more properties potentially coming on the market soon in that luxury price point, second homes, just because people are really reconsidering where they're putting their money and if their spend is worth, just the limited time that they're using it here, if they're not in that super, super wealthy classification.
Absolutely. There are, of course, the properties, I'm thinking Martha's Vineyard, places like that, where you can get 40, 50, sometimes even $70,000 a month in rent during peak season if you're renting it to, say, a Hollywood producer or something like that. But that's not really the focus here in Rhode Island. This is more, I'll say, the tuna fish rather than the caviar category of luxury property, where folks that are good earning professionals that want a second home. And there's all of these taxes. I also call it the saltwater tax because the salt air has a tendency to degrade properties much faster than would be otherwise the case. And in a moment of financial stress, as I think much of America is today, with rising interest rates, with rising costs, people will, as we saw in the wake of '08, sacrifice the vacation home and protect the homestead. And
Yep.
This is perhaps one of those times where we will see that effect as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're definitely going to be seeing that. So I think that increased inventory is also going to lead to buyers really being aware of pricing, really running their numbers on if they can afford something, running all those carrying costs, because they're just so aware of all the different costs it takes to own a second property. We've been really sensitive about pricing properties because the buyer's super informed, and we need to make sure with that increase of inventory we think we're going to see that we're pricing things properly. I think we're starting to see a trickling effect of that here, but July 1st is the date that it really goes into effect, and I think we're going to see a lot more after July 1st.
Are there restrictions in that market specifically around short-term rentals? That is often the case in areas where you often have vacation properties that people don't want, or at least the local community doesn't want that transient population coming through with loud parties and some of the disruptions that come with folks that are just here in a luxury property for 2 to 3 days at a time. They don't use the property with the same level of care that a long-term tenant or the owner would.
Yeah, there's definitely some restrictions. A lot of times it's a town by town scenario. Narragansett specifically in Rhode Island it's an interesting market because there's a college here, University of Rhode Island. So there's been a lot of back and forth with how many unrelated persons can be in a rental. And so it's an interesting market because seasonally you've got summer and people try to do that weekly. And then you've got academic year, and so that's basically September to May. So you've got 2 income producing seasons, which has always been a great market for investors to come in. But with the rising prices now, it's running the numbers to make it profitable is a little bit more difficult than it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if someone would have purchased a property locked in at a very favorable interest rate, and now it might be repricing at something that's much, maybe sometimes even double what it was originally in terms of the interest cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And property values have just gone up so much. We've sort of been discovered here.
Yeah, no question. So if you segment the market, how do you see this affecting? Is this really primarily just waterfront properties, or do you see this playing much more broadly?
I think so $1 million now assessed value is a lot of properties around here. So not just waterfront, I'd say anything in a location that's desirable close to the water could fall into that category. So we think maybe the intention was to capture all those properties along the waterfront that were very high value, but it does capture a lot of other properties. And I think that's where we're going to see the greatest impact because I think financially that's where there's going to be the question of, does this make sense or does it not for those people that are right on the brink, and it is going to take a toll on them. So I think it captures much more than the, Taylor Swift property that you see on Watch Hill. It captures water view properties that are, assessed just over $1 million, that it was somebody's property that they inherited, and they're just every year making those tax payments to keep it in the family and enjoying it a few months out of the year. And now there's this additional bill, and they're like, doesn't make sense anymore. Should we sell this property? And then, for on the other side, for the buyer side, like you're saying, there's those people from Boston that might be coming in, and this is their special place, and it's not something that they're going to dump $5 million into. This is a weekend getaway, and they really have to crunch the numbers to see if they can make it work. And so that's the pricing sensitivity thing there, where we're just trying to make sure that we're fully aware of carrying costs. Because this is just one more thing in the equation that could change the decision for somebody.
Now, within the grand scheme of things, obviously property taxes vary widely across the U.S. In your area, the mill rate is sub 1%, around 0.7, 0.8, depending on the nature of the property. That seems, if you're sitting in Houston, Texas, and listening to this, where your tax mill rate might be 2.1, maybe 2.7%, you're going, oh, what are you complaining about? Because their situation is dramatically different. How much is this second home tax impacting the mill rate? Is it 10%, or is it?
It's a half a percentage.
Half a percent. So it's significant. It's almost doubling the property tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is significant. So yeah, on $1 million, that's an extra $4 or $5 grand a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a difference.
I just think right now to have a second home in Rhode Island was always somebody's dream. And even if it's not a huge dollar value, it's people were making it work,
Mm-hmm.
and property values have gone up. So their real estate tax has gone up over the past several years a lot. And so everyone was already saying, our tax bill is so high. And then to add something onto that is like, okay, this is really just a catalyst of, are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? But I mean, obviously, I don't think values in coastal towns in Rhode Island are going down. I think investing in this market is always going to be a stable choice. There's a real lack of land around here.
Yeah.
So I don't think you could go wrong buying a property here, but it's just something, a decision financially that somebody's going to have to make, whether they keep a property or sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Allie, if folks want to connect, if they want to learn more, what's the best way?
Definitely give me a call. My number's 401-932-6597.
And do you have a website as well?
Yep. We're part of Sirhant in Rhode Island. So on Sirhant's website, our team is called the Allie Readyhough team. We've got 8 members, and we'd be happy to help anybody that needs a place in Rhode Island to sell a place, buy a place, or just any questions on the market.
Love it. Well, Allie, great to connect. And for the listeners at home, definitely connect with Allie Readyhough. Phone number and links will be in the show notes. And in the meantime, have an awesome rest of your weekend. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.